So I will make a start. Hopefully the camera will turn on. Try once more, and if not, no, it doesn't work. So it's a pleasure and it's a great pleasure and privilege to join this forum this morning, your time. It is afternoon in Melbourne time, to share some insights about water safety plans with a group of very important people, from all the way from your chairperson and chairman to people who implement water safety plans. I don't think I've ever met this diverse group of people from the senior management all the way from the senior managements, and it is a very pleasing thing for me to observe from as an outsider. So it's interesting listening to the opening welcome speech and the other speeches and your Mr. Chairman's speech. I felt like I don't really need to emphasize a lot of things. I felt like I'm going to preach to the converted. However, it's important to talk about, I thought, what would the success look like to you, or what is the success of implementing a water safety plan? So I will just focus on that theme and with some examples and some ideas for you to take home and move towards to the next phase of your water safety plan implementation. Now, what I have written there, I think your chairman and a few others mentioned, it is about supplying safe and aesthetically pleasing water to, I don't call the word consumers or customers, I call it community, because it's customers are communities bigger than the customers. But one important thing I want to emphasize is 100% of the time. It's not every half an hour, it's not every few hours, it's not once a day, it's not when it is raining and not raining, it's 100% of the time. And that is the core theme of success of a operational water safety plan. Now, if someone asks this question from me, can we ensure water safety without water safety plan? I would say no. Interestingly, water safety plan started in Sri Lanka, formally in 2016, but I have been promoting water safety plans, I can remember, from way back from 2006. And someone from your organization at a senior level walked up to me and said, Asoka, I think we know water safety plans. We have been implementing these things. I don't think we need a water safety plan, but I don't think anybody in this forum or the organization has any doubts now that water safety plan is an essential component of a water supplier, whether it's a urban supply, semi-urban, peri-urban, rural community. It is the core of your providing. It's essential to supply water. Now, this is another misconception. Water safety plan is not extra work. It is the work you do. If you run your water supply system as designed, as planned, then it is not extra work. And this quote is not from me. It is from our drinking water regulator. Interesting looking at the theme of the day, sharing experience and lessons learned. I would have thought, I was thinking about this last night. I thought I would actually refresh the theme of the day. I'd say achievements, challenges. That includes lessons learned, and more importantly, what are you going to do with these lessons learned in the future? I'm not talking about 2 years, 3 years, minimum 10 years, and beyond. So what is the future? It's great to it was great to hear from all the the speeches before, you are moving towards this. So I feel like I've done this presentation after listening to your speeches before. So it's good to see the alignment from the top management. Now, I want you to answer, think about the question, especially the the people who implement the water safety plans in the water board. Now, I know for a fact that you have developed. Now, I've used the word developed, means it's in the book, in a report, right? In a document, 290 plus. Now, this is not an easy feat. This is one of the best water safety plan numbers I have seen in definitely in the South Asia and Asia Pacific region. No one's done that. So don't underestimate the achievements you have made. So it's a great start, but I think there's a lot to do. Now, again, I would ask the question from the water safety plan teams here, people representing the teams, how would you measure the success? Now, if you can answer the questions or the measures I'm going to talk about, then you are in a good place. Now, I've broken this into two areas. One is water safety plan development stage. What I mean is you are preparing a water safety plan, right? So the main thing that I have seen as a roadblock in many countries is there's no drive. There's no drive from the senior management, no drive from the government, no drive from the regulators. So in this case, again, I felt like I did this slide, after talking to you, after listening to you. It's a commitment not just from the top, it's a commitment all the way to the operator, right? If someone in this chain is not committed, you cannot have a successful water safety. I think you are pretty good we have achieved this reasonably well. I won't say it's 100%, but you've done really well, right? Now, WSP is a document. Have you developed a WSP document? Have you identified the risk and gone through the technical stuff, assessed and prioritized the risk? Yeah. You can look at yourselves and ask the question. Then you can decide whether it's a tick, cross, or a question mark. I hope they're all ticks. Now, how do you know your water safety plan is as good as what is in the paper? Right? It is called verification. Do you have proof to show that activities are happening in the field as planned? Now in the previous presentation, there was a lot of talk about proactively implementing. It shouldn't be reactive. We should do drills, etc. So it's interesting, and it's great to see that you're thinking in that space. Now, in the development stage, when we develop a water safety plan, I'm talking about, with my experience in 22 years of being responsible person at Yarra Valley Water for the implementation of the water safety plan. My responsibility is to make sure everything in that document is implemented in the ground, right? And it is an iterative process. It's not. It's a continuous process, right? So first thing we did was we had good processes in place. We had ISO 19,000, ISO 14,000, but it's nowhere near what a water safety plan can do to provide safe water. So we identified a lot of gaps. Have you done that? Have you identified controls for your risk? You have risks from, I heard someone mention catchment. Someone mentions distribution, someone mentions treatment. Water safety plan is end-to-end process, catchment to consumer, right? You can't actually have priority for one against the other, right? They're equally important all the way to the customer, right? You can provide the best water in the world, but if at the customer interface they do silly things, as a customer, if I do something silly, I could be drinking unsafe water. So have you identified control measures or not? Or the lack of control measures and or inadequate control measures. Now, I put this in red because this is, to me, the most important aspect of water safety plans: adequacy of operational monitoring. You know, if you don't have a good operational monitoring process, your water safety plan, uh, water safety plan is not the paper it's written in. So keep that in mind, right? You can have a nice document in a shelf, in a cabinet. No, it's not. The document is important, but document sitting in a glossy document sitting in a shelf, it's not how water safety plans work. Standard operating procedures. Have you developed procedures? Have you identified missing documents? Are you working on those? Now, something that no one probably mentioned today, and I thought it's important, is to train your staff. I think you are doing a lot of training in not just water safety plans, how to do. I work in a water authority like all of you, and I get trained on many things from, all the way from, running a meeting, how to manage my emails to my real technical expertise, right? Water quality risk management, water quality treatment. So appropriate training. I think that is something that sometimes it's hard, but I think from what I know, you have good training programs. Now, how do you know your water safety plan is working? You have to review. Now, I heard mentioned about the audits. There are auditing is not the only way to check what you're doing. You need to do your reviews by yourself. There's a lot of discussions about emergency response plans, the need to institutionalize these, and someone mentioned drills, so we call them role plays, right? It's no good having an emergency response plan. You need to develop emergency response plans, but also you need to make sure they are working. So we do what we call role plays, or what you refer to as drills, right? Because emergency response, you don't use it every day. You do, occasionally use it when you need it, as many of you mentioned during your presentations. You need to make sure the emergency response plan can be put into practice, right? And from experience, I'm talking, we constantly review, update, and trial or role play our emergency management systems. So if you do all that, that's fine. It's interesting. Someone mentioned, I think oil spill. I do watch the news, regularly, while having lunch or dinner. I do watch Sri Lanka news from YouTube, and I have seen what's happening in the last few days. It's interesting. Someone mentioned having containing an oil spill using appropriate tools like a boom. And in this picture, I think is from Ambatale from memory. But you do have, some level of protection there, because that is the first line of defense. Now, this should be in your emergency response plan. Is it there? Have you identified it? Do you know it's working? Are you monitoring how it's performing? So this is just an example of how the emergency response plan should work. Now, water safety plan begins at the concept or planning stage of any document. I think I heard I saw something you talk about as D3. I believe you're talking about this. Now, it is an essential requirement when you build a new scheme or upgrading an existing scheme. That's a golden opportunity to implement the water safety plan, get things right from day one, so you don't have to go through the pain of retrofitting things or improving, spending a lot of money during operation and maintenance, right? So it's, to me, a no-brainer to have water safety plans developed at the concept stage, and then it's reviewed, updated through to design, concept design, detail design, construction, commissioning, operation, maintenance. It's a live document. Now, I think I had no idea you're going to talk about D3. I think what I heard was you're going to make this mandatory for new schemes, but not only new schemes, system upgrades. If you're upgrading a treatment plant, that's a golden opportunity to get it perfectly right to the best practice in the world. Now, I had a lot of discussion about we have good water safety plans, but we are not doing things in the field, right? And I heard the word institutionalizing the water safety plan and few other terms, but this is what we call operationalizing water safety plan. If you don't operationalize, as I said before, it's not the word the paper that's written in, right? So keep that in mind. And again, it's from catchment to, it's an end-to-end process. And this is the beauty of a water safety plan. It's a very systematic approach to identify, manage, and monitor risks and keep updating it. Because the risk today, I can guarantee you, will be completely different to risks tomorrow. E.g., someone mentioned climate resilient water safety plans. Climate changes, change is real, and we know that. Therefore, you need to have your, finger on the pulse all the time. Even we, as Australia is leading implementation of water safety plans around the world, but we are also learning. We have incorporated climate resilience into our water safety plans. That is essential because climate changes bring additional risk. Someone mentioned more frequent floods, more frequent droughts, salinity, saltwater intrusion, spills, oil spills, industrial discharges, etc. They are not climate risk. Oil spills, obviously, not climate related, but in a flood, it can be a problem. So a success to me, the catchment, I would say, if you have identified all your catchments to the nth degree, then I'll be happy, right? Prevent. Why do we do that? A lot of people think catchment is important. Why do we do that? And you have to ask that question. It is to eliminate the risk at the earliest possible point, if practically possible. I know it's not practically possible in everywhere. You can't ask for a factory to be relocated. You can't really resettle people like when you do for building a new dam. You can't do that for water supply system. So how do you minimize the risk? And the beauty of doing that is actually you can reduce your treatment cost long term. And Melbourne is a classic example of having very few protected catchments in the world, and we saved $2 to 3 billion, not million, billion dollars capital investment having to install a filtration plant in Melbourne. Now, treatment process. Are your treatment processes capable of treating the water depending on your source water? Yeah. That the water safety plan helps you to really check this. And I heard the term KPIs, and this could be one of the KPIs in the future. So now moving into the implementation stage, I was talking about development. Now things should happen on the ground. Ongoing management support. Now this forum itself is testimony to ongoing management support, right? And there's I don't think you need anything else. Something as I said, I'm saying it not because I'm a Sri Lankan, but from what I've seen around the world, this is very rare. Now, as I think we talked about this a lot. Treat this as a living document. Now, the water safety plan changes every day. If I show you the document, it's got track changes all over, because someone will call me and say, Asoka, what happens here? Have you got this issue in your water safety plan? If not, I add it and we get together, assess the risk. Can we control it? What do we need to do to control it? So keep that in mind. So it's no point of polishing, I guess, dusting off your water safety plan document just before an audit. I think that is a useless practice to me. Now, I have my water safety plan internal audit in a week's time, next Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm not doing anything special. I just give the document as it is, right? So again, this is why I say water safety plan. Once it's, I guess, implemented, it should be your normal work. I don't spend a lot of time on water safety plan as it is, like it's part of my job, right? Now, field implementation, I think we talked a lot about this, and it's great to hear what everybody was saying before me. Operationalize. Operational, so a couple of things. These are not the only things you do for field implementation. Operational monitoring of control measures. And there is an element or module called improvement plan. It is there for a reason. You identify the improvements, and as your chairman mentioned, what do you need to do to make this thing work for the safety plan implemented? And I'm sure you have improvement plans that have been identified for each water safety plan to make sure the water is safe and clean. And interestingly, there's a lot of discussion about stakeholder engagement. Now, it needs to happen at various levels. When I say stakeholders, if I have a water safety plan in my system, and if I'm removed from the senior management, even meeting the senior management, sometimes you are my internal stakeholder, but there could be a lot of other external stakeholders. And this is hard, this is not easy, but you need to have a plan, right? And we talked about that emergency response plan. You don't do emergency responses on the run. You can't do that. You need to have well-designed plan, practice, trialed, role-played emergency response plans. And emergency response plans are also not static documents, they change. We have changed our water quality emergency response plans, thousands of times. We learn from incidents. Now, again, here we heard someone talking about catchment or the consumer, but keep in mind there are things that you can control very well. National Water Supply by Water Board staff can control the water treatment process. You can control your pipe network, your tanks, right? You don't have to rely on others. So make sure when you, especially water treatment plants and pipe network equally. Now, here are, to me, here are a few technical things. I'm sorry about the technical terminology here, but I hope you can understand they are not rocket science. Water safety plans actually not rocket science, but it needs bit more thinking and working on the logic. Now, I highlighted the word real time here. If you do real time monitoring of your most important significant risk, then then you are a successful person of implementing. Now, it's just a coincidence that someone shared with me, I think Dr. Veragoda shared with me some of the videos you have done, and I just happened to pick one, which was Kandana, because it's bit closer to my heart, because I have audited your Kandana scheme, and it was great to see that someone who's very passionate have gone and implemented a water safety plan, but not only that, done improvements. So now you got real-time monitoring. You had problems, you fixed those problems. So I'm sure you will hear from Mr. Jayaratne more recent stories, but Mr. Jayaratne was a critic. I remember very robust discussions with him. I hope he wouldn't mind, mentioning this. He was a sort of skeptic of water safety plans at the time. This was years ago, but now he'll be probably one of those promoting water safety plans, and he has seen the benefits. He's done a lot of good work, but There are other schemes I know you probably don't have this real-time monitoring. Are you monitoring at least to an acceptable standard? Do you monitor your raw water extraction points? I'm talking about water quality, not just and some quantity aspects as well, but mainly water quality. What about chemical dosing? Do you control that every day, every minute? Um, your systems have filters. Almost all your systems have filters, right? What about filtered water turbidity? How often do you monitor? And I have seen various frequencies. It has to be done real time. Otherwise, you cannot guarantee safe and clean drinking water, right? And this is not, Asoka's theory. This is well accepted, uh, world based on scientific evidence, and there are guidance manuals developed by various organizations like USCPA how to run a filter. You add chlorine almost to all your systems. Well, how do you know your dose is continuously correct? You are not overdosing, you're not underdosing, right? If you underdose, you're not killing your pathogens. Well, more importantly, what do you do when these limits go out of control? It's like, when you drive a car, you go into one day, some what I call idiot going to just brake in front of you. You have to brake very quickly. So if your brakes doesn't work, you're in trouble, right? So similarly, these limits going to get exceeded. What do you do is more important than just monitoring. And this is where your emergency response plans, we call them incident plans, events. Doesn't have to be an emergency. Event can be your chlorinator or your turbidity of one of your filters are out of spec. You just can't keep supplying that water. That's not safe, right? So these are examples of what I call success of implementation water safety plans. Now, water distribution system around the world, there's a significant increase in waterborne disease outbreaks due to failures in the distribution system, and it's well documented in many international organizations like the American Water Works Association. There's plenty of evidence because we could be treating your water to a very high standard at the treatment plant and then ignore what happens in the distribution. It's common. For example, I heard someone talking about pipe breaks. Do you have a good process to isolate the main, minimize contamination, and remove the contamination by flushing? And is that documented? Do you practice it? Do you go and check what happens in the field? Do you have enough hydrants and valves to do this job? What about your assets? You have a lot of storage tanks. How do you know the roof is not leaking, right? Now, just 2 weeks ago in Melbourne, a small area was put under boil water notice because we couldn't guarantee the water is safe. We found some very low levels of microbial, pathogens, or not pathogens, indicators called E. coli in the system. So if you're not sure, tell the public. Right? How do you monitor your distribution system? Do you monitor? And do you prevent water coming back into system from industries, hospitals, commercial organizations? Do you have what we call a backflow prevention program? So these are sort of few examples that I want to share with you on how I would measure success, or how you measure success in accordance with the requirements of a water safety plan. So here are a couple of examples from my neck of the woods. We were not perfect, right? 1999. Since then, we fully understand our catchments, our risks. We have done sanitary surveys. We have done quantitative risks assessments to understand what are the pathogens that's really going to impact us. And we monitor events. And you talk about, I think you were talking about, again, the recent rainfalls you had. We do monitor water quality during during events like this to see, is it during that time, can we run our treatment plan? Would it work? Is the turbidity high? That means pathogen load is high. We we always have data, and we are comfortable to run the system. Here is an example. Again, it's technical. Apologize for that. Plans to respond to catchment water quality changes and emergencies. I think we talked about this enough today. Here's an example. We have chlorination only systems, right? So so after implementing water safety plans for years, we came up with a criteria. If the raw water turbidity is greater than 15, we issue a precautionary boil water notice to the community, because we can't guarantee the quality of water. As simple as that. But it is a big job. So a couple of other examples of success. Now, I don't expect you to read everything or details in this map, but every water supply system in Victoria have identified what are your critical risks. Or this is just a map of this is just a treatment plant. Every process there are limits. If those limits are exceeded, we stop. Right? We stop the system and we fix the problem, come back and get it under control. So they are called critical risk, critical limits, etc. I know the technical people understand that, and every critical process is measured real time, right? So and they are alarmed. So when the alarm goes, we stop. Because things do fail. Mechanical things, electrical fails, they do fail. When they fail, we need to know what to do. And this is the message. Corrective actions when acceptable limits are exceeded. Now, I remember, again, you mentioned about oil spill. Where do we stop treating? When do we stop taking water? Can we bypass, or can you somehow contain an oil spill? Can you, when all your filters, when some filters are not working, can we take those offline and fix them? So these are some examples. And we have continuous focus on what happens in the distribution system, because when the pressure drops in a system, things get into the pipe, and that's where you can get sick, right? So depressurization is a massive thing. It can be due to burst water main break, or planned activity, or similar things. Tanks and pipes are the hearts of your distribution system. So, we use the approach of multiple barriers. If one barrier fails, the second one works, right? So in our storage tanks, we have what we call risk-based maintenance and cleaning program. So we don't go and clean every tank every year. It's risk-based, right? We know how much sediments they accumulate, the risk of the roof type, but also as a secondary barrier, we install chlorinator. So if there's a minor ingress, there's enough chlorine to inactivate the harmful pathogens. So these are all these programs and processes have been implemented as a result of continuously assessing your water safety plan and as a result of implementing water safety plans. Now, we've got online measurements, continuous monitoring at the inlet and outlet of all our tanks, so we know what's coming in, what's going out. So these are some typical examples I wanted to share with you. And that's all I had, but I wanted to leave this quote from Professor Stephen Rudy, who's written books on water safety plans. You can have cheap water, you can have safe water, but you can't have both, right? I don't think I need to stress that anymore, because from what I heard, you understand this very well. Thank you very much.